Welcome back to Gruber Motors and the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome.
And what we have behind us here today on the green screen is a picture in Tuscany, Italy. It's We're seeing the Mediterranean there, looking west. And that particular day, it started off with a bunch of fog, which dissipated very quickly within like 10, 15 minutes or so. It was amazing how quickly it just went away. Then it looked like there was going to be a storm out on the water, and that also dissipated within a half an hour or so. But what we try to do is pick some really nice pictures that we're able to use as a backdrop, and some of the pictures that we've had most recently look like we're right physically there with a table sitting there, like that
Yeah.
restaurant shot that we did. So I hope you enjoy it. Looks like we've got some questions starting to stream in. Welcome, everyone, first of all, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and feel free to ask your questions. Let us know where you're coming in from, and yeah, we'll do our best to answer them.
I think we're going to have a busy day today with the Shanghai Auto Show earlier this week. There's a lot of news and
Hmm.
should be a fun, exciting show with a lot of interaction as well, I hope. Troy Meekoff from YouTube gets things started with a greeting. He says, "Good afternoon from Michigan." Good afternoon, Troy, and welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome. So first news item I have is the Cybertruck. Can we get some pictures up, guys, of the Cybertruck production facility in Giga, Texas? And these were just released yesterday, actually. You never know whether this was somebody on a tour that snuck in a cell phone and snapped this. It doesn't look like an official Tesla picture because it's usually choreographed a bit better than this.
Right.
But what it looks like is there is a production area that is now designated as a prototype production area, and the Cybertruck is under construction. And let's see what else they say in this particular article here. It said that this is an early pilot line, and they have been established, and they're beginning to produce some Cybertrucks. Of course, the Cybertruck was also seen at the Investor Day. They had one there
That's right.
in Texas as well. Um, Looks like we've got some more people chiming in. There's one from YouTube, Alban BG Gulich. He says, "Good afternoon from Bayern." Bayern is Bavaria in German.
Oh,
And welcome. Yeah, it's probably late where you are, and we appreciate you joining us.
on Facebook, David Karain from Ireland has joined us. Good afternoon, David. He says, "I have a quick question. I have a 2014 Model S 85, had a new battery fitted 2 years ago. What are some good tips to keep the battery in good condition?"
Okay, so 2 years ago, it looks like you still have some warranty. What we recommend is use that supercharger only when it's necessary. If you're going on a trip, you need the extended range. Although it may be convenient and fast, supercharging or rapid DC charging does degrade the battery pack to some extent. So if you want maximum life, a good slow charge is the best way to do it. Typically, what we recommend is if you have a charger in your garage, plug it in when you get home, and by morning you'll have a full tank of gas. And if you can dial back the charging amperage, that may also help.
Another thing that definitely helps with the batteries is remember the 20/80 rule. In battery speak, that means you don't go below 20%, and ideally, you don't charge above 80%. It's when your batteries get below 20 and above 80% that heat becomes more of a factor. Either they're taking in the extra electricity, a lot more of it gets converted to heat, or when the battery is discharging below 20%, some of that more of that electric draw turns to heat, and the heat is what kills the batteries over time.
Very true. So it looks like we've got some more international visitors from Facebook. Matthias Magnuson, he says, "Hello from Sweden." So what do we have? Sweden, Germany, Ireland, Michigan. Excellent. It looks
Great
like
international audience today. Love seeing that. You know, you were talking about the Cybertruck, and that's a great picture of their production line. Speaking of the news that's coming through the Shanghai Auto Show, there are other places and people making news as well, not least of which is Elon Musk, who has now announced a delivery date for the Cybertruck finally. Um, this comes from the street. Elon Musk is delivering the Cybertruck around the end of the third quarter. He announced this just yesterday afternoon, talking to investors. Um, he says that we're anticipating having a delivery event probably around the end of Q3. He didn't give an exact date, but Elon did later say that it would be close to the end of September. One thing he has said about the Cybertruck is that he says, I'm confident of saying that it's an incredible product. Cybertruck is going to be our next Hall of Famer, he says.
Excellent. And if Elon was correct in his prediction, it turns out that you might be able to use this as a boat.
Yes. If he's correct in his prediction, that's exactly right. You know, when they did give a little bit of details about how they're going to do the startup cycle as well, very similar to what they did with the Model 3, where they're going to start kind of slow, do a soft start, as it were, making, you know, tens of Cybertrucks to start with per day, moving to hundreds, eventually moving to thousands. And along with that, they said that you know, it's going to be made in Gigafactory, Texas. So they've confirmed that. We've been talking a lot about the stamp machinery and stuff like that coming into Gigafactory, Texas. So we thought that that would be probably the case, and they have definitely confirmed that. And they're no longer taking orders outside of North America.
Oh, why is that, do you think?
The order book is full.
It's full.
It's full.
And what do we have, like 1.5 million pre-orders already or something?
Yeah, something like 1.5 million pre-orders. Investors are thinking that the Cybertruck is going to be the next cash machine for Tesla. Like the Model Y has really become their cash machine. It's a little bit higher end, but is hugely popular.
Amazing. You know, a thought occurred to me with this potential for it being waterproof to the point where you can use it as a boat. It just occurred to me we're not going to be able to buy any flood damage cars at auction, are we? Or any flood damage Cybertrucks?
No, it's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah.
You know, they do talk about low center of gravity, their 0 to 60 speed. They do talk as well about confirming that the Cybertruck is going to have about a 3,500 pound payload capacity and be able to tow about 14,000 pounds. So that puts it in that heavy duty or high duty truck range, kind of like the Ford F-250 or the Chevy Sierra 2500s.
What's going to be fun to watch too is how aftermarket begins to develop products for the Cybertruck. Lift kits, for example. You know, big tires, different wheels, and yeah, it's going to be fun to watch that progress. But they're really thinking this is going to be one of their new cash cows then.
Yes, they definitely are thinking that.
Amazing. Okay.
Hey guys, we're getting feedback from the audience that the audio is low. Can you guys keep your mics up to your mouth, please?
Sure.
Sure will.
All right. Audio check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are we good? I can hear myself a little bit louder now. It looks like we've got some more people coming in. YouTuber Troy Meekoff. Welcome back, Troy. I think you've been with us before. He says, looking forward to circumnavigating the globe with my Cybertruck boat. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be cool. That would, you know, I could see one of the premier items that they add to the Cybertruck boat, some sort of a motor and propeller system that can run directly off the EV battery.
Or we go old school and just put a sail masthead up on it, you know.
Oh, there you go. That would be even better.
Very good. Well, so anyway, I've got another news item here. It's from Cattle, CATL, which is that large. All right, let me get to my microphone here. And it looks like they are launching a new condensed battery that delivers more energy than they typically have. And it has so much energy. In fact, you were saying how many watt hours per kilogram?
Yeah, it's going to be 500 watt hours per kilogram, which aviation experts are saying is the minimum necessary to be able to potentially put a battery into an airplane and have an electric airplane.
That would be amazing, yes. So this appears to be a game changer for cattle. And it will be not only in China, but they're going to be selling these all over the world, of course. But they feel that this is the latest breakthrough in battery technology, and it extends battery life, or not battery life, but I'm sorry, battery energy further than any other competitor. The For example, Cattle's not new to this. In the summer of 2021, they unveiled the first generation sodium ion battery delivering energy densities of only 160 watt hour per kilogram. Of course, the advantage there is we're using sodium, instead of what was at the time in 2021 a far more expensive or rare, lithium salts. But you were saying that lithium is coming down too.
Yes, lithium is coming down a little bit. There's places continue to find more lithium reserves across the world. And we had mentioned, I think, just this last week on Thursday that there's potential of being able to get lithium from seawater as well. And something about 5,000 times as much lithium in the seas as there is on land, or something of that sort.
Yeah, it was an interesting process. It's actually a membrane that captures the lithium salts, and by running it through that membrane over and over again, it eventually concentrates it to a level where it's then able to be mined or harvested.
That's going to be, I think that's eventually going to be a real game changer. When we talk about watt hours per kilogram of energy, I wanted to take a look and see, okay, what are we talking about here when it comes to comparing batteries to fuel? And 87 octane gasoline is what's most common here in the United States. And when we were doing the cattle article, they actually mentioned that a kilogram of fuel has about 12,000 watt hours worth of energy.
Okay.
So a kilogram worth of battery is 500 watt hours. That gives us a little bit of an idea of how far we have to go in order to get the kind of energy density that fuel has. The difference is, with a battery, you can recharge it some 5 to 10,000 times or even more. And with fossil fuels, once you've burned that 12,000 watts worth of energy, it's gone.
It's gone forever. That's right. And it pollutes the environment, of course.
Yes, and it pollutes the environment.
Interesting. Looks like Facebook, Josh Ray, he said, I can't wait for my Cybertruck. He ordered his actually in 2021, so he was one of the early adopters of that vehicle. And we're hoping, of course, that as they begin to release them, they're going to follow the queue and let the first or the early adopters let them have their vehicles first.
Yes, I think so. And Josh, if you get your Cybertruck before we have a chance to have pictures, we want pictures. Please send us some. We'd love to see them.
One other thing, I was watching a podcast with Ellie in Space and Corey Steuben from Monroe today. They're saying that they are going to try and buy one. So, Josh, if you want to sell it, they're willing to pay up to double the price. They said they really want to tear one down over at Monroe.
That was my next comment was, I wonder how Sandy, if he placed his order early or whether he's going to try one, to buy one after the fact. That could get expensive, yeah.
But he said that they have 5 people at Monroe that have reservations. So whoever gets theirs first, or if they find somebody else that will sell them one, they're going to get one as soon as possible.
Very cool. Yeah, that would be quite a teardown, wouldn't it? It looks like from YouTube, Bayan Danish Genome Institute joined us again. He says, me too, and he's talking about the circumventing the globe with the Cybertruck boat, it looks like.
Yes.
All right. So I've got a picture that, if we can pop that up, I believe, no, I guess I don't. I should have had that picture. There are some glasses, and I'm kind of deviating. We're deviating a bit here from the alternative energy theme that we normally have, but this is a high-tech type topic, so I thought we could squeeze that in. Apparently, there are some new smart glasses that are available. Some students from Stanford have come up with a pair of smart glasses that can display certain things on the screen. And I wish I had a picture of this. They look like really thick glasses, yeah. So what these guys came up with was glasses that display output of OpenAI's ChatGPT-4 large language model, and it would give the user a definite leg up during the next job interview or even on your next date. And I found that to be hilarious because I think on a job interview, especially a technical interview, very thick glasses like this are probably going to be an asset because it shows that you're nerdy. All right.
Sure, sure.
But on a date, I'm not sure it would work quite the same way. And of course, timing would be everything. You know, I don't know if the response, the appropriate response, is going to pop up on the glasses quickly enough, or whether the date will be able to see a little scripting on his glasses
I got
as
it
he
there.
is reading those. But I would love to see a practical application of these new smart glasses. But anyway, they say goodbye to awkward dates and job interviews.
You know, as wonderful as these glasses are and as smart as ChatGPT is, I'm sure it's very smart. I've used it a little bit. I'm very impressed.
Mhm.
I know how hard it is to figure out ladies. And I do not think that ChatGPT 4 has enough experience yet to be able to
Yeah.
truly figure out the ladies.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. Although there is a South Park cartoon that's circulating now where a grammar school kid is really frustrated because his crush, he's just not able to make any progress. So his buddy says, "Oh, well, you know, stop texting without using ChatGPT-4. It will tell you exactly what to say." And suddenly this guy's a stud. He's, you know, his crush is now a girlfriend, and so it worked out fairly well for him. Those glasses were popped up there for a while, but yeah, you can see how during an interview you might get away with it, but yeah, on a date it's going to be tough.
I definitely think so.
I got one more image.
Oh, we've got another one. There we go. This is an actual use now?
Yeah, they were showing in the video before too. It was showing what it looks like when you're looking through it. Let me go back to the article. This is what you'll actually see as it's displaying on screen for you.
Okay.
So as you're talking to somebody, it's giving you the prompt.
And then, of course, you might have a problem with the position of your eyes. Your date may feel that you're not looking them directly in the eyes. We have that problem all the time with the sunglasses, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you know, and if you're a guy and you're having to look down constantly to see the text,
Yeah.
that girl is going to misinterpret your intentions in all likelihood.
Very good point. Very good point. Yeah.
So, Facebook, Nunez JW has joined us again. He asks or says, maybe share what you know about EV bidirectional charges for Teslas at home.
Well, Teslas aren't vehicle to grid yet. Ford actually took a step in the right direction with their F-150 pickup truck by converting that to vehicle to home.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that they put an inverter in the truck that converts the DC energy to standard AC, household AC, 120 and 240 volt. And we actually had a customer during Hurricane Ian in Florida a couple of months ago or so. They were facing power outages up to 3 days, I believe. And he had an F-150 fully charged in his garage. He ended up hooking his freezer and some of the other important electrical gadgets to his F-150 pickup truck and was able to survive and keep his food fresh for 4 days or 3 days or something like that. Vehicle to grid is definitely a great idea in that it does a number of things for you. It's a bidirectional path to that DC energy that's stored in the vehicle. What amazes me is the T0, which was a sports car that came out in 1997, made by AC Propulsion, which really was the vehicle, the EV that inspired Martin Eberhard to start Tesla. Had vehicle to grid, and there were only 3 of those built. It was an
Right.
experimental vehicle. And you would think that since Tesla was really founded on the T0 concept, even used the T0 drivetrain, that they would have continued with the V2G concept in that vehicle, but they did not. And eventually, I think Tesla will go V2G, vehicle to grid. But for now, at least, it is not available. There are other companies, though, that are offering V2G.
Yes.
EV manufacturers. Off the top of my head, I don't remember which ones they are. Do you guys remember any of those that we've seen pop up? All right.
Well, I know that Stellantis, when they announced their Dodge EV, their Dodge Rev electric truck, is going to be a V2G capable truck. And I know that that's not the only one. Hopefully, the guys will be able to fill in some others there as well. I believe that in general, the cars that are coming out that have 800-volt charging capabilities with the Gen 4 chargers are coming in with vehicle-to-grid capabilities as well.
We're
Hold up some information here. There's looks like there's quite a few. So just to name a couple, we've got the Ioniq 5, the Nissan Leaf, the EV6, the Outlander, Mitsubishi Outlander, and that one's even a plug-in hybrid. So that one even has the vehicle to grid, which is interesting. And then of course Lucid, the Lucid Air has it as well.
Well,
Okay.
thank you, Richard. Yeah,
Thank you.
quite a bit more than I thought of. And of course, the advantage is you can now use your car as a DC storage system for your solar system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you could jumpstart another EV and give it a charge. You know, there are a number of advantages to this. Interesting. So that's what we know at this point about V2G. And what's surprising to me is that Tesla has not caught on to this yet.
I wonder if they're going to catch on to that with the Cybertruck. You know, they've talked about the Cybertruck being able to take in as much as a gigawatt worth of energy at once, similar to what the Tesla does. Yeah, I'm just pure speculation, but I wonder if that's going to be the case.
All right, we have some more questions coming in. YouTube, Albin BG Gulich, he says, the inverter on my M3 version 21, question mark? I'm not sure what he's referring to. Do you guys?
I think he's asking if the refreshed version of the Model 3 is going to have the V2G capability.
Oh, V2L. Okay, there we go. It's a V2G is what we're talking about there. Yeah, we hope so. We hope that Tesla gets on board with this, considering all the other competitors that seem to have it already.
I wouldn't be terribly surprised if the newer Model 3s and Model Ys that are coming out with the new 4680 battery packs end up with something like that.
TikTok, Jake asks, do you have any videos going over the new Model 3 LFP batteries? One of the disadvantages that we have, unlike Sandy Munro and his organization, we see all the old stuff. So what Sandy's organization does, they buy the latest stuff and then take it apart. So that's not our business model, at least not yet. So, right. But yeah, I would go over to the Munro channel, and this is what they thrive on.
I'm very interested to see how these LFP batteries end up over time. One of the interesting things I learned just this week is that the recommendation for charge rate or charge level on the LFP batteries is 100%.
Really? Okay.
It doesn't seem to have some of the heat property or heat characteristics that the current generation of lithium-ion batteries has. Where if you're that 20-80-20 rule that I was talking about earlier this morning, and so even though the LFP is a little bit less energy dense, meaning that you get a shorter range. Would you rather have a car that has a max range of 270 miles that you are recommended to always charge to 270 versus a car that has 310 that they only recommend that you charge to 260?
Right. Yeah. Good point. And of course, having said all of this about battery technology, the landscape is changing so rapidly. We have no idea what's going to be stuck into these cars within the next 3 to 5 years. There's so much new technology coming along. Right now, LFP looks pretty interesting, but then, of course, the sodium ion and
Yes.
And the Amprius concept, and then we have graphene batteries, and yeah, it just goes on and on.
You know, lots of sodium ion. I'm sorry, not sodium ion. Lots of LFP capacity in factories being built or being announced here in the United States. That's because of the push for electric cars to have batteries that are manufactured or made in the USA. These LFP batteries typically don't require nearly the level of cobalt and nickel. As a result, it's easier to make them in the United States because China controls most of the cobalt and nickel raw materials in the world.
Interesting. Got a question from TikTok from Gary Malik. He said, how would Gruber improve EV cars and trucks? Well, that's a good question. I think the manufacturers are doing a pretty good job staying current with technology. Do you have any ideas how we could even improve that further? Any suggestions that we may offer?
Implementing the 48 volts as quickly as possible for the low voltage interior, I
Good
think would
point.
be a great improvement for EV cars and trucks, even ones that are out there now. I think moving to LFP batteries is going to have a huge impact when it comes to safety, because the LFP is much less flammable than the LiPo batteries that are out there right now. Those are two that I can think of right now. That it's not so much brand new conceptual things as it is taking some of the current technology and implementing them. Those are two of my favorite things that are coming up.
You know, my suggestion would be for manufacturers to improve the EV space would be standardization. If we can get the manufacturers to agree on a battery system
Yeah.
and then make it cross-compatible between brands, it would invite aftermarket, and suddenly the prices would come way down. Everybody's got their own unique proprietary design, and that's very costly because you can't ever scale properly. And then, of course, aftermarket is constantly waiting for an opportunity, nervous as heck because, you know, if, okay, yesterday it was lithium ion, today it's LFP, tomorrow what is it going to be, and who's
Right.
going to develop the production capacity, knowing that by the time you get done building your production lines, that concept and technology may be obsolete.
Sure, that totally makes sense. What makes sense more? Build one LFP plant that can build standardized battery modules for 15 different brands, or build 15 LFP plants.
Yeah. And then in addition to standardization, a range of options like we did in critical power 30 years ago, where we put scalability into the product. A customer, for example, that had a 100 kVA requirement for an uninterruptible power system, but knew they were going to grow, was often required or motivated to buy 500 kVA, which is way more than they needed until they needed it. Well, with a scalable UPS, you now can change or add power modules as you grow. The infrastructure is there to support it. So you could do the same thing with EV batteries. Maybe today your budget doesn't allow for a 400-mile battery pack. All you can afford is 200, but you can always add that 200 later on if it was a scalable option.
Sure, and if your power electronics module in the car wouldn't really be big enough to handle all 400, great, fine. You have 2 or 3 different PEMs sitting in the car. All 3 of them have not only the ability to take on the larger capacity battery, but they become automatic failovers as well. If one PEM starts to blow, it simply gets shut down, and the other 2 PEMs pick up the load.
It's brilliant. In the UPS world, we call that N+1 redundancy.
Yes.
So uptime is 100% because if you lose a power module, by the way, the power module in a car, in an EV, is a 3-phase inverter, which is the same thing that's in critical power equipment. And what they've been able to do in the critical power world is create scalable, hot swappable power modules. So like you were saying, you could have, you simply add PEMs or power electronics modules as you want to increase performance or scale back.
By all means, I think that would be a great idea.
Lots of questions coming in, it looks like. TikTok, Joel Bittner, he says, EV is already going away. Google hydrogen internal combustion engine.
Respectfully, Joel, I disagree. Hydrogen internal combustion engines are definitely one of the paths that Toyota is taking to go forward. But even we saw that the new CEO of Toyota has announced to the world that electric vehicles are going to be the path that leads their charge on the march to carbon neutrality.
You know, the other thing, Joel, and I truly respect your opinion and your prediction on this, but EVs are coming down in price, and that downward price pressure is going to make it very difficult for anyone to continue with a hydrogen drive system. But we'll see. I'm in favor of both because both are essentially emission-free transportation.
Right, right. And what we don't know yet, um, if you take a look back 25 years, everything in the world was Windows in technology. Everything was Microsoft. Microsoft had a monopoly. Nobody's ever going to beat Microsoft. This little upstart company that ran on Microsoft Internet Explorer put out a search engine for free and started to build their own little empire by simply changing the game. They said, well, why does everybody have to buy Microsoft? We'll just give away our own spreadsheet program, our own word processor, but they have to run it on a browser. And that way it doesn't matter if you're running Microsoft or if you're running Unix or if you're running Macintosh. It's all on the Google browser.
Mm-hmm.
And Google's now an empire as well. They just simply changed the rules of the game. Same thing could happen here. It could be that the true technology winner in the future is neither electric vehicles nor hydrogen. Maybe it's solar. Maybe something happens with solar and we can get away with a 20 kilowatt battery and a solar panel on the top that charges the car as it drives more quickly than the car can use electricity. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, and it's coming rapidly. It looks like TikTok, Gary Malik, welcome, Gary. He says that he has a friend that works at Mercedes, and all the EV customers are returning the cars. They are not happy. I'm unaware of Mercedes having technical problems, but it looks like there's some insider information available
I'd
there.
be very interested to find out more about that. I know our experience has typically been that people are excited to have their EVs, and they have unique problems. They have some of their own unique things.
And it looks like we've got some of the visitors chatting amongst each other. We'll share another one from TikTok. Jake says, in response to Gary's comment about Mercedes being unreliable, he says that's because Mercedes are insanely unreliable, not because they are EVs. Which surprises me. The brand, a Mercedes, was always one of the hallmarks of quality and dependability and luxury. And it doesn't surprise me greatly, though, because a lot of these OEMs were blindsided by the speed at which EV adoption took place. And as they're scrambling to attempt to remain relevant and get into the EV space, they've got to be cutting corners, getting their product out.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. Now, earlier in response to the vehicle to grid, Jiminy Stack has chimed in. So welcome and good morning, Jiminy. He said that the Lucid has both V2V, which is vehicle to vehicle charging, as well as V2G.
Amazing. A step ahead, it looks like.
And then on YouTube, the Bion Danish Genome Institute, our friends there, have said, I got a 1988 Mercedes W201 that I don't drive very much. It would make no sense for me to get an EV because the energy that goes in production is far higher than what mine consumes. But those who drive 50,000 plus kilometers a year, that's roughly 32,000 miles a year, they definitely should have one, or a very small economic diesel. But where is the cutoff? Is it somewhere between 10 and 20,000 kilometers? Is it higher? Is it lower? That's a really good question.
It is, yes. Yep.
I don't know where the cutoff is for sure. It's here in the United States, especially in the Western United States, we are a driving culture much more than many other places in the world. I cannot speak much to Europe. I know that you can a lot more than me, Pete. But I know that living here in Arizona, it's nothing to drive the 350 miles to go to Los Angeles, or to drive the 500 miles to go to San Francisco, or to drive the 700 miles to go to Salt Lake. Goodness, I've driven the 3,900 miles to go up to my family in Alaska.
And in Europe, if you drive distances like that, you'd be in other countries rather than in the same country in a different state or a different region.
Yes.
One other thing, Mark, here in Phoenix too, I was just going to say, if you go from what is it, Buckeye, all the way out to like Gold Canyon. It's 100 miles just to drive across the city.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excellent point, Jesse. My family and I, we moved from our home to a place that's more centrally located. At the time, I have two children. My son lived in the far southeastern portion of the Phoenix metro area. My daughter and her husband lived in the far northwestern area. We bought a place that's roughly halfway between my son's house and my daughter's house, 93 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's city the whole way.
Mm-hmm. My father, when he came here about 25 years ago or so from a small town south of Munich, right in Bavaria, they were used to riding bicycles. There was an economic disadvantage to having a car. You just couldn't afford it often. And so bicycles are very much part of their way of commuting and transportation. And of course, the distances were very short. You had, the butcher, the candlestick maker. You had everything fairly close. The baker, the bäckerei. Everything was close by, even within walking distance. Well, when he came here, the biggest astonishment he had was the width of our roads. They were just,
Oh, sure.
5 to 10 times wider than what they were used to. And the fact that we were willing to travel 30 miles to go shop somewhere, like IKEA, for example, from my house.
Okay.
Again, in Germany, that would have been a completely different region of their country or another country, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But this is definitely a different culture.
So getting back to the question, I still don't know if we have a good handle on miles, but it is going to be a cultural thing as much as anything.
Mm-hmm. Looks like TikTok. Gary Malik asks, how can you grow Gruber to a huge company like AutoZone? We are going to need professionals to service EVs. This question we get asked a lot, and we promise we're going to have some frequently asked question videos eventually available. But the problem that we have here in the independent EV space is, unlike the OEMs who have parts available and can basically do module swapping, the skill level that's required for the type of mechanics and technicians and engineers that we have is on a completely different level. We have to open things up, troubleshoot down to component level, and do root cause analysis. And that requires a completely different set of skills than somebody that takes a black box and mounts a new one inside a car. So the difficulty we run into is being able to find people that can do this type of work. Otherwise, we'd be scaling left and right.
If you look back at the EV landscape, we've been talking about the rapid change. Our specialty is working on EVs that are more than 5 years old, and in most cases are more than 8 years old, because most battery warranties go 8 years. It's 2023. If you go back 8 years, the entire marketplace that we have to deal with consists of 2,500 Roadsters, and consists of, as of this year, probably about 60,000 Model S's.
Mm-hmm.
There are no Model 3s, there are no Model Ys, because that's the space that is out of warranty and really our ideal customer. Now, the market is growing exponentially, but in order to be able to grow and scale, we got to let the market mature just a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Good point. TikTok, Gibson. I've got a Chevy Volt that's 3 years old and needs a $25,000 battery. Now what? I don't know of any shops, at least in our area here, that are able to repair Chevy Volt batteries. But the other solution to changing a $25,000 battery is to find a shop like ours that is able to open it up and find what's wrong. The real sad part here is, for the owner at least, that $25,000 battery replacement may only be a part that's under $1 on a circuit board somewhere inside that battery, or a resistive cell. Now, getting to it, of course, is a challenge, especially with the Tesla Model S, where you have to peel it open like a sardine can and somehow save the lid, because you've got to reuse it to make it waterproof and to be able to put it back together. But this is exactly what independent maintenance will eventually evolve into, because there's a financial incentive here, lots of business that's available, and it wouldn't be hard to compete with an OEM that gives the customer a $25,000 replacement option for a car that's worth maybe even less than that, versus a competitor that's able to open the pack and fix it for $5,000 to $10,000.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point there.
Also, I don't know if Gibson knows about who we are and what we do, but that's exactly what we do, just with Teslas right now. You know, we are the first independent shop to go down to this component level and do these things, but it's only a matter of time before there are shops for the other manufacturers out there that are going to be doing the same thing. We're just really early in on this.
Correct, Richard. Many customers are facing the same quandary that Gibson is facing with his Chevy Volt.
Richard, if I could get your help too and look up which of the Chevy vehicles, electric vehicles, had the recall where they were going to have to replace the batteries. I don't remember
Yeah.
if that was the Volt or if that was the Bolt with a B.
TikTok, Douglas Philpott says, there will be emission from producing the batteries. Well, there's always, of course, some form of emission for producing anything, especially at the mining level. You've got a lot of machinery there that is digging in the ground, and it's usually diesel powered. It's not going to be electric yet. So yeah, I agree with you. There is some level of emissions from just making some of these emission-free products.
Yeah, there is. One of the things that we took a look at several weeks ago was what kind of emissions are we talking about and how much. The efficiency of an internal combustion engine usually is somewhere between 25 to about 40%. That other 60 to 75% gets dissipated as heat. A power plant typically is between 45 and 65% efficient in turning its energy from coal or natural gas or whatever into electricity. So yes, there are emissions that get produced, but the level of emissions and the efficiency of those of the production of energy is much higher on the electric side than it is with fossil fuels.
Looks like we have some more international audience. YouTube, Mitch Sad King says, good afternoon from Kuwait, Anwar.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Yeah, that's Anwar, who typically joined us on Instagram, but it doesn't look like he's not been able to join us since Instagram no longer supports our streaming on that.
We haven't resolved that yet then? Instagram is still dead?
Correct.
Ah, okay. All right.
Now, Let's Go Brandon on TikTok asks us, what's the latest on the new glass batteries? And that's something that I'm going to have to research and get back on. I'm not sure what we have on glass batteries. I know that AGM, Advanced Glass Mat, is a technology that's been out in batteries for some time, but that's similar to a lead acid type of battery where the electrolyte, instead of being just straight sulfuric acid, is an advanced glass mat that's acid infused.
It looks like YouTube. Watch Rich Rebuild's channel is chiming in again, and he joins us often here. He says, good morning, guys. Good morning to you, too. You know, it just occurred to me that is an excellent way to advertise a business by selecting a name exactly like that. Now, we like Rich Rebuilds, by the way. We don't mind, promoting his business. He does great work. He's an ally. He's a partner and all that. And we still want to get him on our podcast. Rich, I keep saying this on the podcast. If you're watching, or if anyone affiliated with Rich is, I'm trying to get a hold of you. We think that you would do a great job collaborating with us on this podcast. We have so much in common, so much to talk about, and the audience would love a collaboration between the two companies. But thank you for joining us. Good morning, guys. Good morning to you, too. TikTok, Wilcox87, he says, the real issue is how are we going to produce the electric power to shift to an electric world? We get asked this often as well, and we felt the same way for the longest time, and then did a video. And when we do videos, we have to do lots of research.
Right.
We have to get facts straight. And in doing this video, we were amazed at the amount of growth in the grids around the planet. the addition of additional ways of generating electricity, the cleaner ways of generating electricity, and the prevailing forecasts were that the grid is going to be able to keep up based on the current rate of adoption, which of course is exceeding everyone's expectations. So unless something otherwise happens, at this point it looks like we're going to be able to survive and have enough power for all these electric cars.
The amount of energy that comes into the earth from the sun on a daily basis, all the solar energy, is almost unmeasurable, it seems like. And yet we're only harnessing less than 1/1000th of the total energy that's put out by our sun.
Fusion.
Yeah, you know.
I was waiting. I had a
You were waiting
timer
for
set
that.
up for Jesse to chime in there.
For those
Fusion
of
is
you,
on its way.
yeah, for those of you new to this, one of our social media guys is actually dead set that fusion is the future. We all agree, of course, it's just a question of when. But what we're trying to do eventually is get away from the need to store energy in a vehicle and add 1,200 pounds to a car.
Right.
You know, by the time you get something like fusion, a fusion generator in a car that generates its own power, storage is unnecessary. You're going to have all the power you need as soon as you get in that car or in that vehicle or plane or whatever it is that you're trying to propel.
Absolutely. Nunez JW on Facebook has a food for thought for us. He says, we had a gadget that would split hydrogen from the air for us to use in our Blackhawks. I'd be interested to find out more about that gadget. And JW Nunez, I have a brother-in-law who was a Blackhawk helicopter pilot for some 20 years. So I'm going to make sure to ask him about that, see what he has to say, and he might have some information for us.
He's just going to turn around and say it's classified.
Yeah.
Well, he might.
Could be a go. You know, for those of you that remember your high school science class, if you take a jar of water and you put 2 pieces of metal into it and you hook a DC battery to those 2 pieces of metal, what you're going to do by putting a cover on it now is, the 2 electrodes have to be inside a glass or something to contain it. As the current flows through the water, it's going to separate that H2O into 2 different elements, which is hydrogen and oxygen.
Right.
Your oxygen is going to be twice the amount, so that's how you can tell which is the hydrogen and which is the oxygen, because it's H2O, right?
1 oxygen, 2 hydrogen. That's right.
And then the final thing you can do is once you've built up some hydrogen is you take that glass carefully and then you put a match on it and you'll see a little bit of a poof, an explosion and a flame. It won't burst the glass because I've done it a number of times with my boys.
That's fascinating.
But yeah, there are ways to extract hydrogen from the air or from water.
Trucker Alistair on YouTube has joined us this morning. And good morning, Trucker. He says, I can't wait to hear the sound of a 48-volt battery. My ex-brother-in-law built his old Accord a 220-volt sound system, and the sound is awesome. It's no match to 12-volt power source. He says, you guys still rock.
Interesting. Yes. Thank you, Trucker, for sharing that.
You know, that is a lot of current going into a nice stereo system, and you can use just these little network wires to do that if you're running 220 volts.
Yeah.
And then Bion Danish Genome Institute on YouTube has a follow-up about the mileage. He says, in my opinion, is about 15,000 kilometers. For those of us in the U.S., that's probably about 92 or 9,300 miles. Because the energy equivalent of producing a typical new car is about 100,000 kilometers or so, I read. But consumer guides that answers who should get an EV or why would be good. That's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. TikTok, Gibson asks, what happens when an EV catches fire from water inundation, especially after a hurricane or storm? Let's go into detail here, what we're talking about here. When a hurricane, for example, occurs and you get brackish water flooding into the landways, oftentimes there's enough salt content that turns that into a conductive, into an electrolyte, basically. When that water, or if that water gets inside an EV battery pack, and a battery pack typically is a tub, so it's going to contain whatever fluid is able to migrate in there. When that happens, you basically are rearranging where the electrons are flowing. You get electrolysis, you'll get overheating, And if it's severe enough, then that battery can catch fire. And that's exactly what happened during Hurricane Ian a few
Yes.
months ago, where there were reports of some EVs that were catching fire because there was salt water, basically, that they were submerged in. So what happens? Well, you have a fire. And when the fire department shows up, they should be putting lots of water on it, even though it's already in water, right?
Yeah,
To
that's
cool
right.
it down and hopefully, extinguish it. But until we get better battery chemistries, this is going to continue to be a problem.
Yeah, the lithium electrolyte, the lithium that's based on the lithium salts and is what's common in the LiPo or batteries that are so common in cars today, is highly flammable, and it's one of the biggest disadvantages to the lithium-ion batteries today. The offset to that is that this version of lithium-ion is the most energy-dense version that researchers have been able to find so far. But if you remember back a few years, the Samsung Galaxy Note 7s were having this problem as well. They had a little pouch battery, and it had a tendency to overheat, and then it would catch fire, and then whatever it was in would catch fire because it's basically like the temperature and characteristic of a Roman candle.
Right, yep. YouTube, Watch Rich Rebuilds, is with us again. He says, I'm not Rich, just a good friend of his. I'll let Rich know you want to collaborate together. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And yeah,
By
feel
all
free to
means.
contact us.
Jiminy Stack on Facebook has another comment for us. He says, online it shows a Chevy Volt main battery is about $10,000. I'm sure a used battery would be about half of that.
And I did look up what Chevys were recalled, and it's the 2017 to 2022 Bolt EV and the 2022 Bolt EUV. No Volt.
So with the B,
Thank
the
you.
Bolt, okay. Good name for a car, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah,
Bolt, action, and Volt, and EV, all right.
Yes. So we have another image that I'd like to have you guys pull up. It's the inside of a Tesla Semi. If you wanted to pull up image number 2. A gentleman in a neighborhood just happened to have a Tesla Semi truck pull up, and the driver was willing to answer some questions. This driver had mostly positive words about the truck, although he's only been in it a very short time. Now, this particular truck is contracted to PepsiCo over in California. When the Tesla fan and the Reddit user spotted the semi across the street, he was really excited to snap a few pictures of it. And fortunately, he was able to talk to the driver. Also, fortunately for him and for us, he was able to get a few pictures. The Tesla Semi driver claimed that it was his very first day of driving the electric truck. And he also said that he only had 1 hour of training ahead of time. Now, while that might not seem enough, the driver did have his commercial license. And so, if I'm driving a Ford, how much time does it take me to learn how to drive a Chevrolet? Not really very much. It's the same type of concept. The driver did say he was not trained on Tesla Autopilot, however. And but in terms of the Tesla Semi itself, this driver said he was very happy with the smooth ride, but he was struggling a little bit with the Tesla app. I thought that this picture, this one especially, just fascinating. Your driver is sitting absolutely in the front center. The Tesla appears to have about a 500-mile range. It's using the older style cloth seats that Tesla is no longer making for their cars. And if you want to flash the other Semi picture, you're going to see that there's a jump seat in the back. So the Tesla Semi picture 1. And I just thought that was fascinating to be able to have somebody be able to get a little bit of information on these Tesla Semis and kind of see from the inside what they look like. Most of the comments on this Reddit post were extremely positive as well. People saying, wow, this is basically a Model S steering wheel. The Model 3 and Model Y sticks for blinkers and for cruise control and things like that. and just wish we could have cars that were as nice and open and as easy to go with as this.
Mm-hmm. You know, the first comment I made about the center seat inside that semi, I come from a generation where hitchhiking was quite,
Oh yeah,
popular. And it looks like they have a jump seat there, so he could actually pick up a hitchhiker if he chose to do
By
so.
all means, he could. Now, for our TikTok viewers, unfortunately, we don't have the ability to show pictures yet. Gary Malik on TikTok is saying he's not seeing the pictures. So I'm going to encourage you go back and you can watch this podcast either on YouTube or Spotify or Facebook, because we do save it and we do copy it over to Spotify. And then you'd be able to see the pictures and get the full experience.
And for the live sessions like this, when we do have a picture up, if you switch over to YouTube, you'll be able to see all of the images that we pop up.
That's exactly right. Wilcox87 on TikTok also gave us a potentially good idea here. He says, to prevent water intrusion into the battery compartment, why not pressurize the battery compartment with something like nitrogen?
That's a great idea. I think the reason the manufacturers don't do that, although that would be a solution as you create positive pressure inside the pack, is because water intrusion or any of these types of anomalies are pure aberrations. They're very infrequent. They are,
Right.
Out of the hundreds of thousands that they build, there are very few that actually end up with this problem. But it's interesting that you mentioned that, because one of the things that we do after we repair a battery pack that we've opened up and done a root cause analysis on, we actually do pressurize it, and we check to see what the decline or the decline in pressure is, to make sure that we don't have any leaks. So we do the reverse of what you're suggesting there, to try to make sure that we don't that it is a sound repair.
It would seem like with something that large, it would be extremely difficult to keep it under pressure as well. For example, I know this is kind of extreme, but the airplanes, the commercial airplanes, they're pressurized. Cabins are pressurized. We have to be able to survive when we're flying at 30,000 feet, but they're typically only pressurized to 6 or 7 psi, and that's simply because the size of what you're trying to pressurize is so large that 7 pounds per square inch becomes a massive amount of pressure overall that you're trying to deal with. I would think the same thing would hold true with these batteries. Even if you're going to 2 pounds per square inch, well, 1 square foot is 144 square inches, which is 288 pounds of pressure, and these batteries are 4 feet wide and 7 feet long. So let's just do the math. All of a sudden, you realize that you're dealing with 3 or 4 tons worth of overall pressure on that lid trying to open it up.
Interesting point. Thank you. So YouTube, it looks like we've got a visitor, another international visitor. Martin Fisher says, good evening from Davos, Switzerland. Today has really been an international audience. I think that's probably the 6th or 7th one from various parts of the world.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It looks like we have, what was it, U.S., Sweden, Switzerland, Ireland, Kuwait, Bayern. Or Bayern. Yeah, you get that.
It's hard for you to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
You guys, just so you know, we are at 1 hour, 3 minutes, and I wanted to say something about the back of the Tesla Cybertruck real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll pull up a video for you guys. That 500-mile range you're talking about is fully loaded, and it is actually fully loaded 2,000 pounds more than a regular semi. And look at how easily this Tesla semi passes a regular semi going up a 6% grade. You'll see it right here. Just going right past him like it's nothing, with 82,000 pounds of concrete barriers.
Amazing.
Wow.
You never see semis passing that quickly, do you? Because they're basically the same limitations,
Oh my gosh, 6% fully loaded. That I'm thinking if it's a semi on a 6% fully loaded, you're running usually about 35 miles an hour max.
Yeah.
That power output is insane.
It's
Good
pretty
job.
crazy. And you can get a 70% charge on a Tesla semi in 30 minutes, so probably about 40 minutes to fully charge it from completely dead.
Yeah.
The amount of time they save on how much faster they can drive up hills and things like that easily makes up for that charge
Amazing.
time.
And I saw the
yeah.
concrete barriers on that, the payload on that truck. That had to be really heavy. Yeah. YouTube, Heinrich at Connected Health Training from Ireland is listening. Welcome, Heinrich. And then we have YouTube, Watch Rebuild's channel. He says, I'm watching from my couch.
Love seeing you watch from your couch, Rich Rebuild's channel. Thank you.
We're going to have to get ourselves, if Rich has podcasts, we're going to have to watch Gruber Motors, and put some comments on there. All right. Are we going to wrap at this point, do you think? All right. We appreciate you guys joining us as always. Next week we'll do Tuesday, Thursday again at 10 a.m. That's the general EV broadcast or podcast. And then Wednesday we have the Tesla Roadster podcast, which is unique to the Roadster community, although anyone can chime in. The guest that we were going to have this Wednesday in Germany, turns out because of time zone differences and a plane that he had to catch at 6 a.m. in the morning, which would have put him out 2 a.m. with our podcast, he was falling asleep at his desk. So Conrad Buck will be with us at some later date, and we'll put him on the morning podcast. So we're going to have to convert one of our morning podcasts, I think, to a Roadster podcast.
Yeah, I think so. Now, we're going to be having Ingemar Anderson come up, I think, this next week. Jesse, you can confirm.
Yeah, next Thursday.
So next Thursday, look forward to that. Ingemar Anderson is the author of a new book about buying EVs, and it's a kind of a EVs for Dummies type of book. I'm in the process of reading through it myself. It's absolutely fascinating stuff.
Yep, Ingemar is a very talented individual, and I think you'll find the book interesting. We'll give you lots of details next Thursday about how you can purchase one of these, and I believe Amazon is one of the outlets for it.
Yes.
So he'll be joining us, the author of that book. And in the meantime, we really appreciate you guys joining us. We're having fun. We hope you're having fun, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, and good afternoon.